Healing Light takes you on a journey where you'll explore the nuances of energy. You'll visit the angelic realms and study the ancient wisdom and teachings of spirituality. We want you to reach within and discover the magnificent being that you came here to be. We help shine God's divine healing light by bringing love, light, and blessings into your world. And now, here is the host of Healing Light, Teri Van Horn.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Healing Light. This is Teri Van Horn, and, I've got to say that undoubtedly we're going to have some amazing information and messages come through today, okay? The reason why I'm saying that is that my voice is being weird, and my internet connection all of a sudden started slowing down right whenever I was getting ready to do this broadcast. So that tells me that something is messing with us and trying to slow us down and stop us, but not going to happen. So if I do disappear for a moment or two, don't leave. I will be right back because we do have some great info to share with you. Now, I do a lot of work intuitively, and I also do a lot of work as a medical intuitive, and I really enjoy that. But one of the things that's been happening lately is that I've been going through a major medical, healing crisis, in that I have problems with fibromyalgia, and it's just been kind of like going into overdrive. It's kind of like fibro on steroids. Been dealing with a lot of it, and the thing is that healers don't always have the ability to heal themselves. I'm not quite sure where that clause is in the instruction manual with the universe, but it looks like I'm not the only person who has missed that one. But we don't always have the ability to do these things for ourselves, so we have to go outside to others to help us with our healing processes. And I do use a combination of traditional and energetic healing. So it's been really interesting because I have dealt with this now for 18 months. Well, I've had fibro much longer, but I've really had the serious problems for about 18 months. And it all started right after I had a very minor medical procedure and pretty much kind of died on the table. I went to the other side. It was great over there. Been there several times, intentionally and unintentionally. But ever since then, things have been really strange. And so I've been going back and forth on the health thing. It's really slowed things down for me energetically. Yesterday, I did a blog post and just talked about my frustrations and kind of just got it out there. But yeah, I'm frustrated. I have all these things that I want to do. I know I came back this time for a reason because I had unfinished business. I had more things that I had to do here, but yet I've been just hitting this wall. Well, it's fascinating because after I wrote that, I did have wonderful, very loving comments, and things, very nice things that people said. It was like the floodgates opened. I had some really vivid dreams, and what is that one of them, I had have an aunt who crossed over in the last year, and we had just recently reconnected because of, divorces and everything else, and just people growing up and spreading out in families. And this woman was a character. She was a redhead, and she definitely owned it. She was a handful and a very, very highly spiritual person. Well, she was in my dream last night. And basically it was like everything was kind of toddling along with what was going on in the dream. And then as soon as she appeared, it was time to get down to business. And she was just like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I feel like that she came in to really like push me past these barriers that, I've been encountering. So for that, Carol, thank you. I appreciate that. But the thing that's really amazing is that after I woke up, I laid in bed for quite a while, just kind of going through these dreams and trying to analyze and understand what was going on. And then I got, started working on things. I started getting this messages and information that I needed to do something more. And of course, I'm always getting that. But this time, the something more is that I need to do things other than just getting information out there, other than saying, hey guys, let's all go pray for this. So what came together is a group called Light Angels. It's part of Healing Light. And what we're going to do is, this is a group of people that are really dedicated, that are really interested and focused in making a change. Now, this is a subscription group. I am charging for this, really for one reason only, and that is, if you're really dedicated, then let's go do this. Now, the amount that I'm charging is a very funny number. I think it's hilarious because of the number that I got and the reasoning behind it. The number that I got is $12.34 a month. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is a number that I see a lot. And I know that there are different significances for the numbers. And I know that it's definitely a message from angels letting me know things. But the thing about it that was so funny to me is that I'm getting these messages from my angel group called the Fifth Element. And we know that the fifth element is love. Us. That's the thing that really helps pull things together to make changes and to take action. So the price is 1, 2, 3, 4. The next number, the next thing after that is 5, which is our involvement and our love and our compassion and our dedication. So we're going to kick this group off on the 4th of July. And not because it is, Independence Day, but because it's a new moon. And I'm going to start this group. We're going to do things together. We're going to have group meditations. We're going to connect with each other on online calls. I'm going to share information and messages to you that does not go out on the Facebook page or anything like that. This is going to be for people who really care and who really are dedicated to helping. So it's not that much money, but it's just a token so that you can say, yeah, I'm committed. And then also, obviously it's going to take a lot of time for me because I am going to do videos. I am going to do recordings. I'm going to do a lot of stuff for this. Plus, like a weekly email. So this is going to take a lot of time and dedication and discipline on my part to get all of this information together. But, this is the next step in what it is that we're supposed to be doing, or at least what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. I need to get people who really, really want to do this, really to make a change. Now, that doesn't mean that if we talk about, cleaning the water and healing the oceans, that we all have to fly down to, the coast somewhere or pick up trash. But we can do things actively in a different way. So that is what I'm focusing on and working on. I'm doing that. And I'm finishing up my book on working with angels. And that is going to be finished also in July. It's like coming together. I have just had all sorts of blocks for my book thing for quite some time. And everything that I started on was, it was okay here and there, but it all came to a screeching halt after about 2 chapters. But this is completely different from anything that I'd ever intended to write. It is my personal journey. And, you know, I, I don't bog you down with too much personal, information and details and stuff because, you know, the point is getting past all that kind of stuff. So that should be out fairly soon. I hope to have everything finished by early July. And then I'll get it over to Balboa Press and then see what they do with the rest of it. But to find out more information about the light angels, go to my website. It's healinglightonline.com. And there you'll be able to read more about it. And you can click on and subscribe to it. And we can kind of just go from there and see what changes we can make. As long, even in the Bible, it says, if two or more are gathered in my name, I am there. Well, I'm not going to be satisfied with two. I think we need to get a lot of people on board and a lot of people together to make some very significant changes in this planet. Things have turned and things have gone south really fast around here, and we need to make some changes. And if we have to bring people in kicking and screaming to the light, then we need to do that. We're at that point now where, we're going to have to get a little bit more involved, a little more energetic, not just the passive, let's help everybody, see the light prayer. But we're going to have to actively engage in it with meditations, with working together, creating information, sharing it, and getting other people involved. So this isn't about a money-making venture for me at all. Because honestly, at this price, it's not going to make me that much money. But it'll get the right people in there. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Halloween.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Just talking about my new group of people that I want to start working with called Light Angels. And again, if you're interested in doing this and connecting with us, go onto my website at healinglightonline.com and you can find all the information about it. You can also find info about it on my Facebook page. However, none of the information that is shared with that group will go onto the Facebook page. It is only for that group and for working together. I don't want to get it polluted by a bunch of people who want to just be negative just so that they can be negative. Okay, this stuff is way too important to put out there just so that somebody else can bash it. We've had a lot of that going on. And, I thought this is something that we need to do for the people who really, really are interested and focused on making positive changes. Now, let's talk about this hollow earth thing. Now, I admit that throughout my life, I've always been, is it possible to be a geeky rebel? I really am, because I was always the person reading and studying and, interested in stuff. So I was really a geek or a nerd doing that. But at the same time, I wasn't always into the mainstream stuff to read and study and learn about. I did. I'm totally passionate about the Middle Ages and the Renaissance and the Egyptian times. And, that's because I spent significant lifetimes in those areas. But there were other aspects of information that I was also really interested in. And, now, in this day and time, they're called conspiracy theories. Before, it was just, crazy kind of thing. But one of these conspiracy theories was about hollow earth. Now, I don't know if this is real or not, but what I do know is that things and information has been literally for thousands of years, telling basically the same story, and then you start getting legitimate people in and on the bandwagon as well, then a lot of times, no matter how bizarre it is, we find out that it's actually real. We had different concepts of the moon, and we had all sorts of outrageous things, and cartoons and stories about traveling to the moon or, space people and going to Mars. And sure enough, we actually made it. We created NASA and spaceships and we took off. So some things that might be considered to be crazy in a conspiracy theory might also be real. So this is one of those that I have, kind of hit just a little bit about before. But it was one of the ones that I really wanted to learn more about so that I could share some of the information with you and, just put some thoughts out there. So I learned a lot of interesting things as well. Earth theory has actually been around literally for thousands of years. Many Native Americans and other indigenous peoples all over the world talk about those who came from underground. Hopi Indians in Northwest U.S. people who found the Hopi and to help them, like fire and how to, basic kind of technology for them. These have been around for a long time. This is one of the things that really got us into considering this whole hollow earth thing was Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Now, Admiral Byrd was with the U.S. Navy, and he is the person who discovered the North Pole and I believe the South as well. He was a great explorer. And he referred to Antarctica as the land of everlasting mystery. And he's to see the land that's beyond the North Pole because it's the center of the great. Now, Byrd did a lot of exploration back and forth on the poles, primarily the North Pole. And one of the stories that he told, and he not only told this to, other people, but I think he even actually went to like Congress and told them about it. Now, this was around, let me see my notes. I don't know, it was like the last 1940s or so, whenever he did this. And he actually wrote in his diary that he entered Hollow Earth, and he traveled for 1,700 miles over mountains, lakes, rivers, green vegetation, and animal life. He saw, as he put it, tremendous animals resembling mammoths of antiquity moving through the bush, and he found cities and a thriving civilization. He also said that the temperature was 74 degrees Fahrenheit, which that works for me. Now, he said that his airplanes were greeted by flying machines of a type that he had never seen before, and they escorted him to a safe landing area where emissaries from Agartha, or you can call it Ibez, either one, I guess, works for that area. They greeted him. He and his crew were able to meet the king and queen of Agartha, and that they allowed him to enter into their world because of his high moral and ethical character. Now, during this meeting, he said that they were concerned about the safety of the planet and that they really wanted to stop all the bombing, which, this was in the late 40s, and we were doing a lot of bombing stuff and exploring with all of that. And, we're just wondering, he did this. He was in the middle of doing some explorations for the Navy. There was a huge operation in the Arctic called Operation High Jump. And this is where he was doing this and supposedly had experiences where he was able to fly into this area. Now, there are a lot of other theories as well. But I believe that whenever he did this, it was around 1946, 1947. Okay. He also did an expedition to the South Pole in 1956. And on that one, he stated that he and his crew went 2,300 miles into the center of the Earth. And that he also saw an inner sun. And that's also part of the theories and, all the information that we've had about this. Now, there's a lot of different information that he supposedly had and shared with the government. But, as usual, the diaries and all of that don't really exist anymore. Or supposedly, there are some that have been lost and how legitimate those are. But I know that the first time that I was aware of this was because of Admiral Byrd. And I just really thought it was fascinating that someone like him was talking about this. And of course, I didn't learn about it until much later. And I was much, much older, even though some of this stuff happened, around the time that I was born. I think it's fascinating to have someone that credible in the middle of this and sharing this information with us. It's just an amazing, I guess, very credible reference to what possibly is in there. According to the theories of Hollow Earth, the Earth itself that's about 800 miles deep. And then it opens up and it's hollow. And this is where these other civilizations are. And they have their own sun, all sort of world, their own universe inside this one. So it's really fascinating. And when we get back from our break in just a moment, we're going to talk about aspects of this whole inner earth process. So we'll be back in a minute.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Every Tuesday on Living with Moxie, join Shefali Burns and Donna Martouge in conversations designed to take you to the next level, where we highlight ideas, resources, and strategies that provide you with the leverage you require to meet and exceed your business and personal goals. Each week on Living with Moxie, we will lead conversations related to success, achievement, fulfillment, and extraordinary, vibrant living. Are you ready to live with Moxie? Join us.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Issues for some reason, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on, and I know we're kind of fading in and out a little bit, but hang in there. And I think that you're going to be interested in some of the additional information that I have about this whole hollow earth theory. Now, we talked about how Admiral Byrd really gave us a lot of details about what went on in inner earth, but this is part information from him and part information from recovered diaries and writings of his, which, take it with a grain of salt. We're not sure exactly if that's his stuff or not. But there are other organizations right now, like, in this day and time, that are actually doing, explorations on this exact thing. One of them is called the Advanced Planetary Explorations. And what they are doing is they had a North Pole Inner Earth expedition. Now, these guys weren't exactly a bunch of wackos out here saying, hey, watch this, and they're going to go out there and check something out. These guys were backed by National Geographic, and they were using like nuclear-powered ships and subs to get to the Arctic and to be able to do this whole exploration thing. This was not some cheap deal. This was like a big thing that was going on. Now, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Brooks Agnew, and he was really kind of one of the people sort of in charge of this. He's been a really big supporter of the whole theory of a hollow earth. And so he, along with another gentleman named Steve Curry, were organizing a trip and planning to do this several years ago. But unfortunately, Mr. Curry died of a brain aneurysm, and there was like some switching around and priorities and things like that. So they weren't able to really go after this the way they had originally planned. But they did go out to this trip to the Arctic. They called the project the North Pole Inter-Earth Expedition. And they also did a documentary for it. And then they were planning on using that to expand and roll into another trip, something bigger and better funded. But then the other gentleman died and part of the momentum got lost. And I'm sure that with anything like that, if one of the main people passes away, then you've got, you have to kind of refigure your funding and everything else. Now, there's some other things that I found very interesting about the hollow earth theory. One of them is, believe it or not, NASA. Now, growing up in Houston in the 60s, the people at NASA were gods to me. Nobody was cooler, nobody was smarter than the guys who were sending up those rockets and the astronauts who were going off into space. But you got to admit that NASA is definitely your go-to place for technology. But what has happened is that NASA has had a lot of satellite images and images from the space station of Earth. And what happens is that in every single one, there's like the big hole or kind of like a blackout at the North Pole. And this happens over and over again on all of these images. Now, I remember seeing this for years, and they kept saying that it was the ozone. But now people are saying maybe not so much. Maybe this is something else. And actually, I found an article that was just written in May of this month, on the 21st, in a UK newspaper about this. And what's also interesting is that they showed, the space station goes with the live feed, unless you see something like weird lights that are doing things and blipping and flipping around in there, and then they shut it off. Well, it appears that for those people who watch it all the time, whenever they get near the North Pole, they will either turn it off or they will move the cameras and deflect and show something else. So it's interesting. Once or twice you can say it's a coincidence, but when it happens over and over and over again, maybe not so much. But they keep saying that there is something that is both at the North Pole and Antarctica. Now, Antarctica is all of a sudden turned into a big deal because now people are saying and doing explorations, and there was even a article that was written just in the last few weeks about pyramids being in Antarctica. And Antarctica supposedly also has a big opening. Now, there's a lot of info about Antarctica. There was a Perry Reese map that was drawn like in ancient times that fully had Antarctica mapped out before the ice. We're just now being able to see what Antarctica looks like with all of our satellite imaging and, thermal imaging and things like that. And it matches up with this old Perry Reese map from, I don't know, it's like 13 or 1400. But this is all about Antarctica. And, now they're saying that they are definitely finding areas where it's very obvious that there are pyramids and other structures have been on Antarctica, that it's not necessarily just all mountains. And of course, in Antarctica, the ice is so thick, in the North and the South Pole. The ice is incredibly thick. And, there's only so much that our scientists can do because we do have people stationed in both areas. And, they can only work certain times of the year because the weather gets so bad that they can't get them in and out. But in 2012, a team of researchers identified 32 species of bacteria and 2,800-year-old microbes in water samples in Antarctica. Now, this is an area where we have the thickest ice and snow on the planet. But yet, it appears that there are structures there that are just buried under all of that ice and snow. They're finding something similar in the North Pole. But, according to the hollow earth theory, all of this is, on both ends. It's not just, the North Pole, not just the South Pole. It's on both. So we really have to look at some of this stuff and see, exactly what's going on, what the deal is. Now, supposedly, with this whole hollow earth theory thing, one of the things was that the Germans, the Nazis, found it. And they found it at about the same time that Byrd did, except that they actually went in and explored it. So they found that, giants, the small sun, all sorts of different information in there. And there's even an article that I found that was written in 2015, towards the end of the year, that there are 13 pieces of evidence supporting hollow earth hypothesis. Now, the first one was these images from NASA. Undoubtedly, the images where there's like this hole at the North Pole, some of the earliest ones actually started in 1968. So that part's kind of interesting that they've been doing this and seeing it constantly. Okay, the second one, of course, is Admiral Byrd's documents and his testimony about hollow earth. Now, the third piece of evidence is the fact that cultures around the world have talked about this for centuries. Even back with Greek mythology. And Buddhists still believe that there is an inner earth and that it's called Agartha and that it's a paradise, kind of like Shangri-La. Now, there was a mathematical genius by the name of Leonard Euler in the 18th century who determined that the earth was hollow and it contained a central sun that was inhabited. No solid proof on that, but he came up with that. Now, Dr. Edmund Halley, the gentleman who discovered Halley's Comet, also believed that the earth was hollow based on all of his information. He was he was the royal astronomer of England. Now, I mentioned the Nazis earlier. They loved all this kind stuff. And they actually have maps and information from U-boats and ways to access these areas. And they had complete maps of the north and the south entrances on the planet into this kingdom of Agartha. Now, there's also some crew members, some people who were men who were on U-boats working with the Germans who had reached the interior of the earth. Undoubtedly, some chose to stay and some chose to come back. Now, we have another break, and I promise you we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about proof of this hollow earth theory. We'll be right back.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hello! Join us, Lisa Berry and Michelle Carter, every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the Mindset Makeover, What's Possible. Get ready to become present, clear, and unstuck, and start living fully, led by your heart. While you listen and feel this transformation through vibration of word, sound, and song, you'll open up to what's possible and experience your shift.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Hi, this is Teri Van Horn, and we're listening to Healing Light. Today we're talking about the hollow earth theories. Now, conspiracy theories I see as being something that has come along like in modern times. But things like this whole hollow earth thing, this is not a new age, something that somebody just came up with, 20 years ago. This theory has been around forever. Now, we've been talking about some of the, quote, evidence that this is actual. So we've talked about several different things. Now, one of the things that people have been very concerned, or I guess questioning, is that there was a very famous map maker and artist named Heinrich Byrd. Now, this man was German. He ended up switching teams after the war, came to the U.S. like many other German scientists did, and he ended up working for the National Geographic Society in 1966. He created a map of Antarctica without the layer of ice. And it's accurate to the best that we can tell all these years later. It also has the exact locations where the openings are for hollow earth. So that's kind of interesting. One of the things that he has in his map is that there underwater passages all over Antarctica, and they all lead to this one center area where we have the entrance to Hollow Earth or Inner Earth. So that's just kind of interesting that someone in 1966 would be able to create a map that we now can say is probably pretty darn accurate. Because where did he get the information? Just like with the Piri Reis maps that were done literally hundreds, thousands of years ago, and how those were accurate, we'll never know. Now, we talked about the indigenous people, and there are a lot of them who talk about Hollow Earth, or the ant people. We have people who live in the Amazon who talk about it. We've got people who are in Antarctica, or not Antarctica, but Australia, and in the American Southwest. They all talk about Inner Earth and what happens and how they got fire, because they got fire from those who came up from the earth, who came up out of caves to teach them these things. Also, there was a group of Indians called the Makushi, I believe it's pronounced. And in 1907, or up until 1907, they would actually go in and out of some caverns, and they would travel for like a little over 2 weeks, and they would be able to reach the interior. And they referred to this as the other side of the world, or Inner Earth. And in that place, they told, their ancestors and the rest of their community about giants, enormous creatures who lived there during that time. And there are documents about all of these different things that, we're talking about here. Now, not too long ago, scientists discovered that there is an enormous ocean of water inside the Earth, inside that 800-mile crust. And that is like this enormous water tank that could fill the ocean on the surface of the planet 3 times. Now, this is something, that's kind of one of those, not a mainstream discovery, but one that, some scientists have come up with. Now, other studies, including some from Harvard, have said that it does appear that at one time there may have been another planet that collided with us, and that helped produce the moon, but it may still be lodged within our mantle, and that's how we possibly have another Earth inside our planet. That one came from Harvard. And then there's also a bunch of researchers who said that they have evidence of an inner sun that heats the Earth up from inside. And that there are areas where they are able to find that 70% of the Earth's heat is generated from radioactivity from deep within the planet. Now, all this is really kind of bizarre. And hey, I totally admit to that, okay? I mean, the more that I read about it, the stranger it gets. So I want to wrap this part up by talking about Mount Shasta. Because the stuff with Mount Shasta has been going on for a long time. There have been a lot of things, a lot of stories, a lot of mysteries regarding Mount Shasta. I have never been there, but I know many people who have, and they've told me their stories in addition to a lot of things that I have read. Now, we know that Mount Shasta is one of our major energy vortexes, okay? There's a lot of energy that is coming from that area, which is one of the reasons why so many people go out there. But it also has people who kind of like disappear. Supposedly, there's lots of UFOs that are found around Mount Shasta. But also, one of the things is that many people who live out in that area, including a couple that I know who used to live there on the side of the mountain, the lower part, would repeatedly see very tall, kind of thin people who were very pale of skin and wore robes. And they would appear from time to time in the little local towns. And that those people were actually living underneath Mount Shasta, part of that whole inner earth thing. There are a lot of stories about that, and if you check it out, it'll be like totally amazing to you as well. So, and they were the ones who actually got me really interested in some of these stories, because they swore to me that they saw these people and interacted with them, and that they were just amazing. So, check it out, do some research of your own, and see what you come up with as far as your thought processes on this whole inner earth thing. Personally, I've always believed that there is a giant, monstrous quartz crystal in the center of the earth. And that's where we get all of our energy and our healing and our wonderful high vibrational energy from. But I have no basis to actually justify that. It's just something that I've always felt and believed. Now, next month, for the month of July, we're going to talk about the archangels. So every week is going to be something different about the archangels. Next week is going to be about working with them and connecting with them. The week after that, we're going to talk about several of the different ones and their jobs. And actually, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about, the primary ones that everyone's used to hearing about. And then the last week, we're going to talk about some of the lesser-known archangels. This is going to help you with your connection much deeper with the angels, and to be able to really get your messages much more clearly from them. And I know that is also part of my mission here, is that I love working with people. I love helping people, guiding them, doing readings, doing healings, whatever it is that they need. But part of my mission is also to empower you to be able to do it yourself and to connect with the angels and your guides, on your own, so that you are not depending on someone else. So that's what we're going to do, next month, is talk about some of these angels and some of the wonderful things that they do, and help you to connect with them. So before we go, I want to remind you that if you miss any of our programs, you can always find them in the archives here on OMTimes Radio. And you can also find them on my website at Healing Light Online. Also, check out the Facebook page, because I always have information and I always have specials on my services listed on there. And also, I would like to, invite you to join me with, our light angels. This is that mission that I told you about in the beginning of our program, where I want to work together with people who are really and truly like-minded. People who are really interested in making a difference. And then we want to get out there and we want to start changing things. And we can. It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to have a billion people focusing on the same thing to make positive change. You can have 1,000 if their intent is strong enough and pure enough. I've heard before that you needed like 700,000 people praying for something to make a change. I don't buy into that. First of all, I don't know who came up with the numbers or how they came up with that number. But I know that it's all about intention and focus. And if we really and truly are focused and intent on what we want to do, we can do it. And we don't have to have 700,000 people doing it at the same time. We can have less than that, and we can still make very positive change. It's happened in communities where they have done this, and I know it can happen in the world. So check out Light Angels on my Facebook page or on my website. Thanks